I feel in some ways that the digital nomad existence is really actually at its birth because of, like you said, because of the pandemic having necessitated all these companies go remote. There are now millions of remote workers, some of whom are now considering the digital nomad lifestyle. So everything that you and I have experienced so far, I think we do have the potential for just this explosive growth. And things like, and things like your summits and like Globoversity are well positioned to be able to help people cut down the learning curve. Like, I don't know about you, but I stumbled my way up that learning curve and it was not pretty or graceful.
I told you I was couch surfing for 2 years. Who couch surfers for 2 years, fam? Like, what are we talking about here? You're supposed to couch surf for like a weekend or in France or for a summer in Bulgaria, bro. Not for 2 years.
Are you ready? All right. Hi there, I'm Nora Dunn, and I'm otherwise known as the Professional Hobo, and welcome to my series where I speak with ordinary people who have extraordinary travel lifestyles and remote careers. Before I introduce my guest today, I have two little bits of housekeeping, one of which is please mash that like button. It really helps my videos get exposed to other people who are interested in this kind of content, and the earlier you do it in the video, the more the YouTube algorithm appreciates it. Second of all, if you haven't already downloaded your free checklist of 10 things to do before you travel long-term, please do so. You will find a link in the description. Now, my guest today is, he's sitting in Bali and I'm sitting in Canada. So we're 12 hours apart. It's morning for me and evening for him. He is Olúmidé Gbenro. Olúmidé Gbenro is a remote work influencer, digital nomad community builder, and founder of the Digital Nomad Summit and Digital Nomad Week. He's a recognized international social media advisor to celebrities, influencers, and Olympians. He's a notable TikToker known for his viral videos where he speaks several languages. Olúmidé has been featured in Entrepreneur, Business Insider, Bloomberg, and Yahoo Finance. Olúmidé, thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat with me today.
Thank you, Nora. I'm super excited. I think I've seen some of your content and I'm excited just to have a conversation and just connect,
Awesome. Well, before I even get into I've internet stalked you. I have a list of questions that I'm doubtful we're even going to get through. But before I even get into that, I'm curious, the TikTok videos where you speak several languages, how many languages do you speak and what are they?
I would say like I can sort of get around in like 7 or 8 languages, but really maybe 4 are the ones where I'm pretty fluent in. So to go through the list, I'd say obviously English. Yes, hello, English. And Spanish, which I started learning when I was like 12 years old, when my family immigrated to the United States. And then I picked up Portuguese because it's pretty similar. I kind of learned it by myself and with some Brazilian coffee hours during college, during undergrad. And then learned some French. So I'm okay. I'm probably bad at French, but I can get by. And then I'm in Indonesia, in Bali. So I picked up Indonesia. Indonesia, actually, I started learning 8 years ago when I came here as like a missionary kid living in a village, teaching kids English in Papua. And I really was able to pick it up in about 2 months. It's one of the easiest languages if anyone wants to actually learn a language easily. I think that's it. Yoruba. Oh, let me remember my native tongue from Nigeria. It's my tribe, Yoruba. So I don't know how many that is, but
we're up to 5 now.
Five or six right now. And I do speak a little bit of like conversational Germany or German when I'm in Germany. It's kind of weird. Sometimes people are like, don't you speak that language? And I'm like, It's like, it takes a while to brush up, but like promise you, if I go to Germany or France in 2 weeks, I sound fluent. So what else? I say that's about it. Maybe just 6 languages.
Just only 6.
I'm a little embarrassed when I can't get to 8, but it happens.
There's time yet.
Right. I have a little bit more. Yeah, I have some time.
I'm fascinated by the whole multiple language. I mean, I speak English. I learned French in school, but it's moderate at best. I did become fluent in Spanish after spending a few years living in South America. But I find even trying to switch between Spanish and French is difficult because I'm trying to speak French and every time I open my mouth to speak French, Spanish will come out or vice versa. So I like,
it happens to me too.
Does it? Okay. So it's not just me.
Yeah. No, it's not. The brain is a beautiful thing. Like I'll be speaking Indonesian or trying to speak Spanish, but Indonesian words get in between. I'm like, any get that? Like it just how it is. The brain is still trying to figure it out when you have that much in there, you know?
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can imagine. Okay, well, let's go back to the beginning because I have a feeling we're going to dig more into
sure.
why all these languages have worked their way into your lexicon. But what I want to
Yeah.
start with, of course, is how you became a digital nomad and how you developed the career that you have right now.
Yeah, how did I become a digital nomad? I didn't know what it was either, maybe 3, 4 years ago, which is crazy. It was just a lifestyle of you get on the road and you realize, listen, if I don't want to be broke and homeless in Germany, I better learn how to make some money from Instagram or from these social media platforms. So my story is pretty normal. You know, as an immigrant kid growing up in the United States, we arrived from England. And I know you probably asked me about my British accent because I can switch back and forth anytime I want. But I really like realized that, okay, I'm following all these familial pressures to get a degree, to be a, Nigerian kid, you're supposed to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. Those are your three options. Which one do you want? And I chose doctor. I was like, all right, it can't be that bad. And I was like, oh, I'm in these pre-med courses and I hate it. But I still went through sort of a science core degree undergrad. And then I did 2 master's degrees. It's like I traded my parents for being a doctor. I was like, I'll give you 2 masters for a MD. Does that work? They agreed. So, but when I, right, but when I was done with those master's degrees, I was like, man, forget this. Like, I cannot keep living up to my parents. Now they want me to do a PhD. Like they're saying this PhD program, you're going to get money and you're going to be able to go to this university in California and you're going to be a professor. And they were like, yeah, this is a great opportunity. And I'm thinking in my head, another 4 to 5 years of this stuff. I just couldn't do it. And that was when I came to terms with it. Like I'm done with school. I kind of am an entrepreneur now. I used to host networking events for international students, but I also classed it up and I started sort of creating a luxury, sort of high class, world class entrepreneurs that were living in San Diego and Los Angeles, putting them in a room in, multi-million-dollar mansions to network because I was like, this is a way I can level up quickly in my network as a businessman because I was just learning how to, create wealth for myself at such at that time. So after doing those events, I was like, okay, I know how to make money through community building, but I still want to travel. And so that after I finished my grad school, during doing all these events and stuff, I was like, let me leave this behind, which was pretty profitable on a monthly basis to put these people in a room. They pay for tickets. I used to rent the houses. Then I would not rent the houses. I'd get the house from a real estate agent who was trying to cross market to these wealthy individuals. But I was like, I got to leave this behind because like I want to see the world. I feel like I'm stuck here in San Diego of all places, beautiful place. That was when it began. This was 5 years ago. I think it was 2016, around 2016. And I was like, all right, I'm out. But what I realized again, when it comes to digital nomadism was you need to make money online somehow consistently. And it was tough. I was a couch surfer for 2 years, pretty much. That's how it began, couch surfing. And it wasn't like the online on the website. It was like, I called my buddy. I was like, Daniel, I'm coming to Germany. I remember you said, when we were in grad school, I could stay with you. I'm already maybe at the train station. So I'll be there in an hour. Yeah. And that's kind of how I got by for 2 years, learning about social media before I became this international advisor and working with Olympic athletes in my network, being very, very sort of lucrative and good for me. I was just a sort of a broke couch surfer, and I know what it's like to have the challenge of developing, your skills quickly and becoming somebody that actually can create impact for the world. So for all the people who are starting out, trust me, it's okay. Like it's challenging in the beginning, but if you have the right, which I wish I had, if you have the right guidance, you can definitely move faster from someone who's just making a couple $100 to actually creating a solid income that would replace your 9 to 5 and being able to travel. So hopefully that answers the question. I know I kind of went to different places with it.
No, it's all good. So to piece this together, then you had, when you were in San Diego, you had a sphere of influence. You were working with people who were wealthy, and you were putting them physically in rooms together. And then you hit the road and you were developing your social media followings.
Exactly.
But how did that work its way into working as a publicist for Olympians and celebrities and whatnot?
Yeah, good question. It turned out about the network turned into the values. Yeah, I had people who were either influencers or people who had a good following as well on social media. But then I'd met owners of companies or brands through either my events in the past or through going out and networking in these different cities. I was just, I don't know, I pick up Instagram and I can make somebody, I don't make somebody, but I can connect authentically in Instagram and then and say, hey, you know, I saw your company. I'd love to stop by on Tuesday. I'm here in Berlin. I see you're working and doing some crypto projects. I've been learning about it lately. Is it okay I stop by? And I stop by, and then, you know, all of a sudden I'm connecting a choreographer for Justin Bieber in LA to a crypto company that's trying to promote their new platform in Germany. And it's the same thing I do as a social media advisor or a publicist. Now it's like, how can I connect somebody to, you know, getting their story out in some of the biggest publications in the world? Or again, with the influencer marketing, how can I put somebody in a space to amplify their message because somebody has a much larger platform? So it just came about with me leveraging my networking literally online. Like I'll send, one of the biggest tips I give people is don't be shy. Send video DM. Like I've sent video DMs on Twitter and on Instagram to some of the most famous and wealthiest people in the world. And they're like, oh, hey bro, what's up? And I'm like, hey, what's up, Joe? Hey man. And I won't mention names, but it's just the way I am. I don't care. Like, I just want to get to know people authentically and create value. And that's what's really impacted my life, to take me from just couch surfing to saying, okay, now I just feel like there are no rules. I can connect with anybody in the world because I also understand value and I know what this person needs or may want at this time. So I leverage my network and my connections to present them with that opportunity, you know, and if they like it, I end up working with Brittany Reese. Wow. So I end up working with Brittany Reese, who's one of the greatest female long jumpers, American female athletes ever. She has like so many medals for the Olympics. It's her fourth Olympics. And I've known her since the last Olympics, right before, because I sent her a video DM saying, hey, I live in San Diego, Brittany. You know what? You're killing it right now. And I really want to connect with you. I feel like we could create a cool brand for you leading up to the next Olympics. And guess what we're doing? We're working on a brand we're going to drop during the Olympics that's going to go crazy. And we're going to market it through her Instagram and through, you know, the spotlight that is the Olympics. And another friend of mine, Inika McPherson, she's 5'4", but jumps over like 6'5", 6'7". She's competing with all these like tall women, and she's the shortest, but she's still doing amazing things. And I saw her, and I could relate to somebody who sort of overcame adversity and read about her story. And I related. I was like, hey, I see how you're doing. You know, you've been through some trouble, some things happen here. I can tell you, you know, you can still do it. I believe in you. And she's one of the people where I'd say, you look at someone's story and you can say, wow, I can relate. And those are the ways that I connected with these different people to say, I've been there. I know what it's like to be the only kid that looks like that in class and everybody's staring at you. But I also love what your recent startup has been doing in the world. And I think I can help you. I think I might be able to help you, you know, with raising your next round. Or I have some influencers that love this kind of product that helps people in personal development. You know, if you're free, we can have a 10-minute chat. And those are the ways that I started to implement. That's really helped me take things to the next level.
So what I'm really hearing here is you are a connector. You really like to connect
Absolutely.
people. You're also an ideas man. You have the initiative. Like you reach out to someone and go, hey, look, I really love what you do. And I have this awesome idea for something that we can do together. And because you are a connector and so affable and courageous enough to reach out to anybody, because people are people, this is, right. You've done very well by this.
Absolutely. I don't care. There's some people, I don't know, the DMs won't get through, but I've DM'd the most. I DM everybody. I'll send an email to anybody. I don't believe there's always, if you understand value, you can meet and connect with and work with anybody. So once I let that limit go in my mind, that's what really changed things. So yeah, it's a huge lesson for people to just don't be afraid to also don't be afraid to get rejected. and get blocked. It's happened. You know what I mean? If it's not for them, people block all the time. It's their prerogative. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and this is, I can now see, this makes so much more sense now in terms of so many of the other things that you're doing. Like, for example, your connector skills now and your community skills, you've applied to the digital nomad community in a variety of ways, not the least of which is Globoversity, which is a community for digital nomads. Tell me about that.
Yeah, Globoversity came out of COVID, COVID adversity, because I realized when we had to postpone our summit 2 years ago, which was going to be in Bali and make it a virtual summit, I kept thinking like, it's cool to bring together 1,000 people online, but like, what do you do the next week? Like with these same people who just learned, okay, now I know how to, I don't know, how to create some income through Fiverr because they watched something, from someone who presented at the summit. Where's their support system? Where are they going to be learning on a regular basis from the top people that they've been watching at these virtual summits? So I saw that all the top level people they had, celebrities mostly. We have celebrities in the midst of us. We have people like you who've been doing this for so many years that have knowledge. So you have a celebrity in terms of your knowledge, and you're set apart because you have this immense knowledge and experience. That's what I should say. So what I ended up doing was reaching out to people in the community that are experts so that we can start creating world-class content and world-class education for digital nomads and remote workers. So that's kind of where Globoversity came out of. I will tell you, it hasn't been easy. It's something where to create a platform like that for masterclass, it's a lot of personal investment. It's a lot of times behind the scenes, identifying and talking to the right sort of team and influencers or leaders, and then trying to bring it to fruition. So far, we have the front end of the platform. You can go to globoversity.com and kind of see the vision. You can sign up for our for early access. You can get 50% off the actual cost of having access to over 20 masterclasses, which we'll have by the end of the year, filmed and ready. And then the biggest thing, like you said, community, is a lot of courses online. The challenging thing is that you take a course once, or you learn from an instructor, but you never really have a way of sustaining, your learning. In communities has been shown to be the biggest thing to increase the completion of content, of courses, of education. And that's one of the biggest things we're implementing, meaning people who are part of Globoversity not only get access, obviously, to our virtual summits, but on a monthly basis, we'll also have opportunities for people to learn and connect. And even people who are in Globoversity as members will get to present their expertise, and we'll get to say, hey, okay, sure. Okay, you're a stay-at-home mom. You want to teach a masterclass on sewing. You can do that. You can create it online. So this is the future sort of features we're thinking and we're testing, and we'll allow our community members to participate on a monthly basis, not just watch a movie type masterclass. But anyway, that's kind of where Globoversity came out of from COVID, and wanting to have a sustainable long-term community that is also at a very high level, being that I've seen in the circles and the people I've worked with, like we got to bring it to the highest level, not just, no offense to sort of like webinars, but we got to take it to the next level. And I really want to be the leader in the community that steps things up where other niches and other communities are like, oh snap, like we need to be part of this,
So Globoversity then came on the back of Digital Nomad Summit and Digital Nomad Week as something that would be maybe a little more sustainable long term. But so then
Absolutely.
Tell me about what the inspiration was then to start Digital Nomad Summit and Digital Nomad Week, and what's happening with those.
Yeah. Well, COVID made things sort of go virtual. So for Digital Nomad Summit, it's usually physical. So the first time, 2019, we had to make it virtual, right? And the next year, it's like COVID's not over, so we got to make it virtual again. But the reason I wanted to do Digital Nomad Week this December was like, I saw all these sort of leaders, that even emerging leaders or people who were stepping up, creating content on YouTube, teaching people about the lifestyle. And I was like, there's so many of us, but there are also some of us that are like, have been doing it for 10 years, that know the emotional, psychosocial challenges. Some people are like past accountants and know how to deal with taxes, and people that deal like yourself, like you have specific knowledge that people just have no idea about, but it's so easy and simple for us these days. that I wanted to bring the leaders. The key is there's so many virtual summits, right? I wanted to identify the leaders all around the world from every continent in so many countries. We already have over, I think, 35 countries already registered for December. Our goal is 120. We did 85 last year for Digital Nomad Virtual Summit. It's turned into creating opportunities for people globally, especially after COVID. It turned from maybe a few thousand millions of people to billions of people just said, okay, this might be a possible thing for me. So working remotely and as a digital nomad. So that's kind of where both of those came from. But Digital Nomad Week was like, I want numbers. We're going for 10,000 people in December. And I know we're going to do it just even based on our community leaders like yourself and everybody that's sharing the news.
You know, I feel in some ways that the digital nomad existence is really actually at its birth. Because of, like you said, because of the pandemic having necessitated all these companies go remote, there are now millions of remote workers, some of whom are now considering the digital nomad lifestyle. So everything that you and I have experienced so far, I think we do have the potential for just this explosive growth. And things like, and things like your summits and like Globoversity are well positioned to be able to help people cut down the learning curve. Like, I don't know about you, but I stumbled my way up that learning curve and it was not pretty or graceful.
I told you I was couch surfing for 2 years. Who couch surfers for 2 years, fam? Like, what are we talking about here? You're supposed to couch surf for like a weekend or in France or for a summer in Bulgaria, bro. Not for 2 years. But, you know, I had to learn so I could bring it to the world and share these lessons, you know. So because my thing is, we don't want $5. My buddy Ollie Nord, I talk about this openly. It's important I say these things because I have this platform now. I don't think we need $5 a day digital nomads. You need to listen to the leaders and realize before you leave the job, you need to have some savings. Before you become a digital nomad, don't put yourself and others around you at risk, your family, whatever. Like there's better ways to do this. Listen, Nora, me, everybody else, we made the mistakes. You don't have to do it. You just need to listen to how to do it correctly so you don't have to suffer. So I totally agree with what you're saying.
Well, and you know, before we started recording, I was talking about how, you know, when I was a digital nomad, there was no community, there were no conferences, there were no summits, so that was why, of course, my learning curve was just horrific. But even once there was, you know, once communities and conferences started happening, I was already like deep into my style of travel, which was very immersive. And I was always house sitting on some, you know, mountaintop somewhere, or I was like milking goats or painting murals or doing really interesting, culturally immersive things. But because I lacked the community, because I was unable to connect in person as well as online with people who understood the lifestyle and from people with whom I could share and learn from, I believe now with a good dose of retrospect that is one of the reasons why eventually after 12 years, I burnt out from the lifestyle and I had to come off the road for a while. Now I'm so grateful that something like this exists, because I think that because there are communities and ways for people to connect and be together and share these experiences and have a contextual baseline that they can understand and share. Now we're looking at being able to create sustainable lifestyles. And I want to take that and go, because one of the things that you are doing is you're a key advocate and a big player in the development of digital nomad visas. And I'm curious what that means to you and why you're doing that work.
Yeah, I think this thing about global citizenship is key because it's tough. You know, if you come from a lower income country, I mean, I was born in Nigeria and I have a Nigerian, can I say that? Yeah, sure. I have a Nigerian passport as well. Shh, don't tell anyone I have several passports. Okay. Let's talk to the one guy, Andrew, that helps people get multiple passports. But there's certain places that I have a guy. When you're born, you know, in certain countries, unfortunately, you know, it does limit what you're able to do. And I think Digital Nomad Visas is a first step towards global citizenship, meaning when my parents immigrated from, you know, Nigeria to England and to America, there's a certain stigma against being an immigrant, whereas because you're going from a technically low income, although we got oil, baby, we got oil, we got money, we got riches, but that's a different story. But you go from a lower income to a higher income country, people see you as a, what is the immigrant, right? When you go for a higher income country, have you ever noticed that you go from a higher income country to a lower income country? If you're American, Parisian, you move to Bali, you're an expat.
You're an
Bro, we're
expat.
both immigrants. We're both immigrants. What are you
100%.
talking about? So this is why I think the digital nomad visa is so key in terms of leveling the playing field, because what I've noticed, and in the people that I think are doing it right, and I'll say criticism because I have the right to, is when you create these passports, if you're listening, you're a government official, make it open to everybody. Like, the fact is that the digital nomad visa will allow freedoms that most people around the world have never had. And also, it'll make it legal for us to finally do it. That was one of the biggest things that made me advocate for it, because when I arrived in Bali, everybody was doing what we call a visa run. We hopped over the border. I think my record is like 6 hours. Go to Thailand, come back in 6. By the time you arrive, you're sitting back in your living room. You just went to another country. I mean, it's just incredible how much people were doing it. And I knew from the start, this was 3 years ago, I was like, there's something up about this, fam. I don't know. Every time I come back, they say, Mr. Olúmidé, what are you doing back? You come back fast. I said, well, I work online and my business is based in California, but I love Bali. And they're like, okay, you may pass. And some people, they don't pass. Some people, they give them extra questioning, but then they pass because Bali also is, you know, thriving at the time on, tourism. And I have lots of friends who are living the lifestyle. And I was like, I don't want y'all to get deported and banned from Indonesia. So we started working on this initiative, even as early as 2 years ago, just having conversations, interviews, collecting data, figuring out around in Bali and in people living in different islands, like, what is your attitude? Would you pay tax to live in Indonesia? We had a very big survey go out in the Facebook groups and also email lists. And people have been saying adamantly, like, we want a visa and we'll pay taxes. Like, majority of people voted or said they're willing to pay in whatever regard. It's just the fact that the government's a little slow to react. Indonesia does have a little bit of an older government. They're not as up to the Estonian kind of style, but I have a lot of respect and love for Indonesia, and I have full faith that we'll be able to get a digital nomad visa. I won't predict it, but I think it'll happen sometime this year, because I've seen there's a particular person, his name is Sandiego Uno. He's the Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy. He's a younger guy and he's on TikTok. So, hey, I kind of like him already. And he's been proposing some things that kind of like indicate that the government is sort of seeing, some of the work and the advocacy we've been doing. And I got to mention my friend Wayu Taufik, who's the academic, a young Indonesian who's been helping along the way, like leading, not even helping, leading to really make this thing legit. I think we're close. I just have a feeling, because we've seen some news come out about they're thinking about a digital nomad visa, but actually it's more of an investment visa. But listen, the fact that they use those words, and the guy, the Secretary of Tourism, started using the word digital nomad, we got something here. They're listening. They've seen my TikTok videos that went viral and seen by over 1 million people, and they know I'm also here, but I'm also living legally because I've registered a company in Indonesia that I have residency. I'm respecting the laws, yet I'm advocating for the community to say, we need to get something here, because most people won't stay longer term in Indonesia. They really want to go to Turkey, and they want to go to Estonia, and they want to go to Berlin, because it's a cool little tech hub, and people have all sorts of interests, and we're nomadic, like you said. People always want to travel. It's in our nature. So yeah, I hope that this year we'll be able to get the digital nomad visa for Indonesia, because so many other countries are doing it and they see that, so I'm just waiting. And I'm not a politician. I don't pretend to be, but we're going to push the media, and we're going to push every aspect we can socially to make some people turn heads, and then they make the decision. When it happens, they probably won't mention any of the work we're doing. I don't care. When it happens, I know it'll be a culmination of all the efforts that me, YU, and everybody in our community has done to say this needs to be done,
I have a bone to pick with a lot of the countries that are offering these remote work and digital nomad visas. And I'm curious to get your opinion on that, because you know, they're branding them either as remote work or digital nomad visas.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm
Right.
a purist when we come to the term digital nomad. Digital nomad means you are
Mm-hmm.
nomadic, you're living nomadically, you technically have no home base. However, when I
Right.
read the fine print of these visas, they're requiring the applicants to spend thousands of dollars on the application
Mm-hmm.
and then to prove that they have an income generally from an
Yeah.
employer, sometimes in excess of $100,000 US. Now, you started talking about this by talking about making a visa accessible to everybody. Now, it seems to me like the definition of that kind of digital nomad visa is very elitist and very privileged, and that is
Mm.
not
Mm.
inclusive the way perhaps someone who's got a global citizen mindset would want a visa like that to be. And I kind of wish that they
Yeah.
wouldn't, the countries that are structuring their visas like that would not call them digital nomad visas, because a lot of digital
Yeah.
nomads are self-employed. How it's more difficult to provide the
Mm-hmm.
paperwork to prove the income to satisfy whatever requirements this country wants us
Yeah.
to satisfy. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm gonna be real. This is not gonna be popular before I say this. And I'm okay with that. I think, like I spoke earlier about $5 a day nomads, or even when I was broke, couch surfing. I think that the visas should have a standard because we need people who will contribute to the countries in which we're going. I strongly believe that. Now, when certain visas come out and it says you have to deposit $100,000 into your bank account, into the bank account of a local place, even I'm like, there's people in our communities, we could do that. But what these countries are going to start realizing is that, my friends, it's become an open season. It's a competition for our talent and our money, our dollars and euros and wherever we're from, lira. And it's going to come down to basically how much you're willing to offer to these kind of wild, wild west, renegade. Like, we can literally show up in your country and be gone in 3 days. So you better give us the best deal. Now, with that being said, I believe it's more about leaders like us helping the community to bring in $2,000 per month. And actually, 99% of these countries that people are usually going, that's a standard that they could live, whether they live, in a co-living space where you share a room, or there's other ways that we can do this to where we set a standard, but not a standard that's so high that they're kind of like are in a way discriminate against newbies. I wouldn't have been able to afford these things 5 years ago. So I have to think about the version of me today, because I don't want the old me to be couch surfing. The old me should probably have taken a course or gone on Globoversity, learn how to make $2,000 a month on Fiverr, because it's not easy, but let's put it this way. The internet has everything you need to do to make a baseline amount of income these days. There are kids in Nigeria that's making 2 to 5K a month chilling on their laptops on Fiverr. And a lot of them work for me or work with me on certain projects. I want people not to miss out on the fact that it is important to have a higher income if you are going to go to another country, because we don't want your ass, excuse my language, but that's just how I talk.
No bag
That's
packing.
very American of me. Hey, but I want you out here in, Bali, just living in a hut, which is cool. But I want your standard of living to be high enough so you can sort of live a quality lifestyle, which I think there's this thought of, like, as a nomad, you have to live poor and broke. I totally am against that. Again, if I wanted to say something controversial, I don't believe that's how we should live. And to answer the question, the standard for these digital nomad visas, some of them are really high. I think there is a little bit of discrimination, but I believe that there should be a standard. But we have a responsibility to get our community to that standard so that people around the world in lower income countries that, generally if you work a regular job there, you'll be broke. But now you got Fiverr and Freelancer and you're making logos for like $100 and you're doing 10 a week, my friend, you're making $1,000 a week. And there are people in these lower income countries that are doing it. But let's not make the visas so challenging that it's not open to all these different countries because you think they're all broke. They're not. That's how I'd answer that question.
Very cool. Thank you. And that plays into my next question, which is,
Sure.
born in Nigeria, raised in the UK, spent time in the United States. You are a global citizen. You have these cultural, I've listened to a couple of interviews with you, and you're fabulous because you'll flip accents. You know, like you'll be talking about having a conversation in Nigeria and you'll be like full on Nigeria accent. And then suddenly you're talking about growing up in London and you've got like full South London. And then you go to an American accent, which seems to be your default, at least with me.
That's my default. It's what I get by with every day.
And this is so obviously you're very adaptable. Obviously you have a very global, multicultural background that of course has been colored with your original heritage from Nigeria. How has this worldly experience of growing up informed your lifestyle and the decisions that you have made and continue to make?
It's told me that discrimination, racism, hate, all that is something that is ingrained from an early age. And every culture I've been to, everyone that's ever had an issue or psychosocial, emotional issues has always been rooted in their childhood. And a lot of the work I've done on myself, even really related to these issues while I've been in Bali, not because I lived in Ubud and turned into like a spiritual person, but because when you spend so much time alone, you realize like, there's a lot of stuff inside me internally from my childhood that sucks, that's making me act out and make poor decisions or do something to harm me or others. And I need to address that. My experiences since I was a kid growing up in these different countries to becoming an adult has told me like those internal things are far more important to deal with than the external sort of things that you think are impacting you. And no, it's like the thoughts and the things that you think about yourself are changing the world around you. And that's what's made me realize my experiences has shown me, like made me into the kind of person that I'm absorbing and looking at issues that I've seen in every culture. And it's the same issues. And it all roots down to your childhood wounds and the abuse or the challenges and the things that have happened to you. And whether it's someone is racist because they were raised that way, or you have certain social cultural issues in different countries. I just started realizing it's the same thing. It started when they were a kid, either through their parents and the way they were raised, or through a personal experience. And I think that's the biggest thing that I encourage people. Like we talk about, make money online. Most of our summit in December is going to be around like a lot of personal development, a lot of practical things you can actually implement in your life. Because again, you can go to YouTube. The reason that I learned how to do my first social media marketing agency that got me off of couches and into like little apartments in Mexico before coming to Bali for a year was what I learned on YouTube on how to create a marketing agency. The tools are there. So I think the more important thing is forming that individual to somebody who can really, like you said yourself, identify a community now that's available, plug in and find the love and the structure to create like a good life around them while making money online, like the individual on the inside. I think it all starts within. And I learned from all these different cultures, like that is what's really impacting each person in their little communities to the fact that it has like a global impact.
And I think that travel is the thing that opens our minds to that. I was listening to an interview earlier today that spoke about culture and what is culture, and the hypothesis that this person was putting forward was culture is not food and clothes and architecture. Culture is mindset. And we all have an ingrained culture, and we don't realize we have it. We don't realize we have that programming, that we're born with it, because a fish doesn't realize that it's in water. And it's only until I think we start traveling and we start learning online and offline about other cultures and communities and ways of thinking that then we can actually expand our own culture and then the way that we see and interact with the world therein.
Yeah, when I'm with my Bali homies and people from the United States and Switzerland and South Africa, like everyone always says, we don't look at color. Of course it's there. Like it's features between us we can notice, my friends. But like recently I've just been noticing in these circles how much more connected we are. Like we're not looking at because some people may have been born in like, even let's just say the Americans, we got the privilege thing. Like when you were the Americans, there's this pride and this thing, right? You can't even describe it. And I started noticing, especially with friends, American friends, right? Culture, American friends that have been here long enough. I'm like, they're not actually an American anymore, right? That egotistical, I'm better than you attitude. We USA, like we win everything, which is cool. But in a way of the context, right? Let's see. But the way that you live in a new environment where you're all just brought down to the raw humanity. It might be even at a beach club, but we're all in a circle and we're talking. And there's not that thing that usually that push, that thing from culture that is ingrained in that way, the negative things. I think what I can speak to what you just said, your comment is like, it seems to be falling away. And it made me just think like, wow, like we have a chance. Our community may actually be the one that's helping to solve a lot of these issues, whereas we're just being injected into different cultures. And when you're dropping this baseline, like assumption and ingrained attitude that you've been raised with that doesn't fit everybody, or maybe offensive, or maybe too aggressive, or whatever, everybody drops down to a baseline level of like humanity where we're just connecting. And I think that's just something to mention. It just came to mind. Like there's something going on with if you think about it, people like you, the OGs who didn't have 300-person co-living space, it was just you. And once in a while you saw a friend were like, oh, hey, you're from Colorado, you're from, Zimbabwe, but what are you doing all the way over here? And you're like, okay, but you don't see a person like that for 5 years. Now, I think, and I believe this is the first time we've seen 2-3 years of this in this generation, this nomadic tribe that has cell phones and iPhone 12s meet up and say, we're just traveling through space and time. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Okay, I don't have anything else to say. Cool. Do you want to get a drink or a beer? Oh, you want to get a coconut? Do you want to hang out? You want to date? And there you go. And that's how the magic begins.
There's a book that I read called Americana by a Nigerian author, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And she also did a TED Talk. That's one of my absolute favorite TED Talks. And it's called The Power of a Single Story. Or the danger of a single story. And that also refers to, I think of that because I think of that we have that single story, we have that narrative that we create for people and cultures. And it's not until we have the chance to really interact with other people and to understand their ways of communication and to really have those proper conversations, those heart to hearts with people who have, a different lexicon, a different way of living. That's where we can grow. And I'm actually really inspired by this interview in ways that I never expected I would be, in that, we've talked about the explosiveness of the explosive potential of the digital nomad community and world, such as it is and what it will be going on to the other side of this pandemic. And then also the work that you have been doing in developing communities and in advocating for digital nomad visas. And I mean, this is a whole new world. It's a brave new world. And it's something that I think is going to be, serious cultural inroads can be made by virtue of this work and what the world is becoming. And that's amazing to be a part of that.
I'm super excited. I'm a little scared. Like it's a lot of pressure. I'm not gonna lie. Let me just put it out there. Like I need help. Anybody watching this? Mayday, mayday. We need you. That's why we're bringing all the leaders. Like I can't handle this on myself. And that's why collaboration and community is so important to say, it's not just me. Listen, don't put me on a pedestal. We all have an opportunity to like change the world. Like that's why like all the people that are on the summit, all the people I've communicated with, I've built a relationship with over the last year or 2 years. I'm like, guys, like I told them, I was like, guys, it's time. And they all said yes. And we're about to do this. And what I love to be real do about a company is like, people are humble. I've never seen such humble people before. And I have so much faith, but I'm also thinking like, we need more. If you are a leader, if you have a community of people working online or showing people, this lifestyle, in a positive way, we welcome you.
Well, and you're such a busy guy, and I'm so honored to have had the time, but I also know that you have another meeting you need to get to. So I am going to wrap this up woefully. Hopefully we'll have a part 2 at some point. Where can people find you? What do you want to shout out there for people?
Oh, my LinkedIn is lit right now. I need everybody to go to LinkedIn and look up Olúmidé Gbenro. And you know what excited me too about LinkedIn, quick thing, was it's a professional platform. And it always used to be just like big companies. And now it's like we can have a little bit of the social and show like, okay, having this element of humanism and like not thinking about getting a job or trying to do a crazy $1 billion startup. It's like, no, this can be a community zone for remote work and digital nomads. That's where you'll find me now, where I'm actually taking it very seriously in terms of creating valuable content and sharing important news in the community. You can bet when we get the Digital Nomad Visa, I'm going to make a video or a big post on there, and would love to connect with people. I'm very open to, I'm doing so many meetings, like you said, I'm doing so many meetings, like I typically don't do everyday kind of things, but I just see how important it is. So I'm open, just send me a message on LinkedIn, let's connect. Let's see if we can bring value mutually to our community and keep this thing growing.
Well, that's how we connected. So I can assure everyone who's watching or listening, it works.
Yeah.
Thank you, Olúmidé, so much for sharing your expertise, your knowledge, your inspiration, and your personality with us today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Nora, and keep up the amazing work for the community. Super proud, super happy.
Cheers. I'm Nora Dunn, and I'm otherwise known as the Professional Hobo, and I'll catch you next time.